Most men live in a lie, chasing love, proving their worth, only to be discarded the moment they stop being useful. They've been told that if they just love hard enough, work hard enough, give enough, they'll be chosen, respected, loved. But time and time again, the result is heartbreak, betrayal, and confusion. What if I told you this wasn't bad luck, but by design? That the pain you're feeling isn't personal, it's systemic. 2 centuries ago, a German philosopher named Arthur Schopenhauer looked beyond the fairy tales. He stripped love down to its core, a biological illusion, a manipulation rooted in survival. What he discovered was so raw, so dangerous, most men today still refuse to see it. But once you do, everything changes. You stop playing a rigged game and start rewriting the rules. This isn't about bitterness. It's about power. It's about understanding why you've been misled and how to finally take control. Because what you're about to hear, it's not just controversial. It's liberating. If you're ready to stop living in denial and start living with purpose, stay tuned. By the end of this, you'll never see women, or yourself, the same way again. Love. Even the sound of the word feels holy, like a creed we're all expected to follow unconditionally. We're told love means safety, unity, eternal devotion. From fairy tales to blockbuster rom-coms, romantic love is portrayed as the ultimate goal, the thing worth sacrificing everything for. But Schopenhauer tore away that glossy illusion. He looked past cultural myths and saw love for what it truly is, nothing but a biological mechanism, fiercely designed by nature, not to comfort, but to reproduce. He wrote unflinchingly that love is nothing but the will to live. Stripped raw, it's a survival blueprint, cloaked in emotion. That breathless excitement you feel when you meet someone new? It's not destiny. It's a pulse of neural chemistry, alchemy in your brain tailored to seduce, bond, and ultimately procreate. When a man says, "I love her," he's not just expressing an emotion. He's broadcasting a deep instinct. I choose reproduction with her. His mind is scanning fertility signals, youth, health, genetics, compatibility. But he misreads desire as romance, as if he's above primal drives. He isn't. Women, Schopenhauer noted, operate on a different algorithm. They're not chasing chemicals. They're calibrating. Their instincts compute status, protection, resources, lineage. Romantic gestures don't matter unless they serve. Sacrifice doesn't win hearts. It lowers perceived value. When a man competes, she's observing. When he dominates, she's drawn. Until that domination evaporates, and then so does the bond. Schopenhauer wrote this bluntly: to be loved, one must not be just, but clever. Being nice is not a virtue, it's a vulnerability. It signals scarcity, it signals need. Once you're nice, you're no longer desirable. This divergence in motive is why most men end up trapped, devoting time, energy, resources, emotions to chasing an illusion. They believe in reciprocity, give love, receive love. But nature never promised fairness. It promised one thing: continuation. Once your role in that biological mission is complete, the affection fades. Schopenhauer stripped away romantic fantasies and laid bare a silent, often unspoken wound. Men suffer not merely heartbreak, but disillusionment. Not rejection, but betrayal by their own biology. Look at the pattern. The early chase, intense infatuation, the peak of connection. Then, plateau. Effort increases just to maintain interest. Yet even massive investments fail to prevent drift. This isn't emotional failure, it's systemic. The resolve of male effort meets the inertia of female selection. The chemistry fades, the alliance cools, and suddenly sacrificing more earns you less. That's not coincidence, it's biology doing its work. And Schopenhauer begged men to wake up and see this clearly. Here's where it gets raw. Every blockbuster romance you've absorbed, the ones teaching you that vulnerability begets closeness, they all lie. In reality, vulnerability is leverage, for women, not men. It's the tool they use to differentiate, to assess value, to test emotional strength. When you confess your deepest feelings too early, when you overflow your attention too soon, you teach your partner that your value is conditional. You signal that her affection is your oxygen, which flips the dynamic entirely. You don't become more lovable, you become safe. A safe emotional container, a reliable background, someone no longer worth pursuing. Schopenhauer observed that once possession is claimed, excitement diminishes. He called it the tragedy of possession. The drive that drew you in, challenge, novelty, conquest, is extinguished by comfort and familiarity. And men, blind to evolution's rhythms, keep pouring in more. They keep proving, pushing, propping. And as they do, the relationship becomes less of an ascent and more of a descent. The pitcher cracks under strain, the alliance fractures, and the very effort meant to preserve love ends up destroying it. All because they miss the fundamental truth. Love is momentary. Love is survival. And once the survival objective shifts, love shifts too. Conventional wisdom has conditioned men to see weakness as weakness. Schopenhauer told you the opposite. Emotional surrender before foundation is not bravery. It's bidding for disaster. If you want depth, you don't lead with exposure. You build with strength first. Build your identity, your mission, your independence. Love becomes a feature, not a crutch. Affection becomes interest, not expectation. Only then will the alliance be slow burn, rather than boom and bust. And this isn't cold cynicism, it's clarity. Disillusionment turns into insight. Pain evolves into purpose. History's great men, artists, philosophers, heroes, they weren't spinning their wheels chasing affection. They were building mountains that women admired, not persuaded. So here's the question you need to ask, but probably haven't. Are you chasing love or being chased by need? Because until you see love for what it really is, a temporary alignment with purpose, you'll keep charging at shadows and wondering why the light always dies. Pain will repeat until clarity begins. Women don't love the way men do. That's not a critique, it's a fact. While men fall for beauty, softness, emotional connection, women select, not emotionally, biologically. Schopenhauer saw through the romantic myth and identified the real driver behind female attraction: utility. In the cold calculus of survival, women are the selectors, men the performers. Every gesture, every interaction, every spark of affection, it's a test, a subconscious scan of value. Who are you? What can you provide? Are you a worthy vessel for her evolutionary investment? This is not romantic. It's not meant to be. Because nature doesn't care about your feelings. Nature only cares about efficiency. And when it comes to reproduction, women carry the burden. Pregnancy, birth, child rearing. That is the biological investment. So women evolved to guard that investment fiercely, choosing only the best possible mates to ensure the survival and thriving of their offspring. It's not about fairness. It's not about niceness. It's about strategy. A man may see love as selfless. A woman sees it as a transaction, not consciously, not maliciously, but instinctively. Her mind is scanning for signals: confidence, dominance, ambition, genetic health. These aren't preferences. They're survival indicators. And if you don't meet the threshold, her instincts will not allow her to feel genuine desire. This is why trying harder rarely works, because no amount of effort can override subconscious biology. You can't earn attraction by effort. You trigger it by presence, by value, by detachment from needing her approval. Modern dating proves Schopenhauer's insights every day. Look at the dynamics. Women swipe right on the top 10, maybe 20% of men. Men who demonstrate height, looks, power, or social status. The rest? Ignored. Invisible. Because the female mind, guided by evolutionary precision, doesn't waste time on potential. It optimizes for the now, for what she can sense, for what the tribe would value. You don't get points for kindness. You get filtered for weakness. This is why nice guys finish last. Not because they're bad people, but because they've been sold a dream. The belief that if they just love enough, give enough, stay loyal enough, they will win. But the game they're playing was never based on merit. It was based on hierarchy. And in the female brain, attraction always flows upward. She wants a man who could have others, but chooses her. Not a man who clings to her as his only hope. Neediness is not love. It's repulsion. And women feel it like a sixth sense. Here's what Schopenhauer recognized. Women are masters of emotional perception. They read tone, posture, micro-expressions, hesitation. You think you're just having a conversation. She's performing a full system scan. Are you congruent? Are you bluffing? Do you believe your own value, or are you trying to convince her of it? The moment she senses desperation, she disconnects. Not because she's cruel, but because her instincts know what desperation means. Danger, instability, poor protection, poor genes. That's how deep the filter goes. This isn't about hating women. It's about understanding them. Because when you finally accept that female attraction is based on value, not virtue, you stop blaming. You stop begging. You stop competing in the wrong arena. You build your value, not just financially, emotionally, physically, spiritually. You become unshakable. And in doing so, you flip the frame. You go from being the applicant to being the evaluator. That's the core shift Schopenhauer offered. Women are biologically tuned to follow value. You don't need to manipulate. You don't need to perform. You need to become a man on his mission, a man who doesn't flinch, a man who commands respect by how he moves, speaks, and lives. When you do this, attraction is no longer something you chase. It becomes the natural byproduct of your presence. So ask yourself this: are you trying to be chosen? Or are you building a life where only the highest caliber woman qualifies? Because the truth is, most men aren't rejected by women. They're disqualified by nature. And Schopenhauer's genius was revealing that to you before society could lie to you. You can resent this truth, or you can use it. The choice is yours. If this message resonates with you, hit the subscribe button and join the channel. Thank you for being here. There's a moment in every man's life when he believes he's finally won. He's secured the girl. She said yes. She moved in. She wore the ring. And in his mind, the struggle is over. The mission complete. But what happens next shatters him, because as soon as he thinks he possesses her, she begins to slip away. The attention fades. The passion dims. The warmth turns cold. And he's left wondering, what did I do wrong? The answer, Schopenhauer said, lies in one brutal insight. Desire dies in possession. What excites the female mind is not stability. It's motion. It's pursuit. Women are biologically wired for the chase, not the catch. Once the uncertainty is gone, once a man is fully accessible, the fire begins to fade. This is not a conscious betrayal. It's instinct. Nature didn't program women to maintain desire after the hunt. It programmed them to choose the best available male, and then, if a better one appears, reassess. This is the reason the man who once thrilled her suddenly feels like a burden. It's not that he changed, it's that he stopped evolving. Schopenhauer called it the tragedy of possession, the illusion that once you attain something, it will continue to give you the same joy it once did. But joy, like attraction, depends on contrast, on tension, on lack. The second you become predictable, the second you center your entire life around her, you erase the very qualities that made you attractive to her in the first place. You stop being the man she wanted and start becoming the man she tolerates. You exchange polarity for peace, and peace without polarity leads to boredom. The average man, when this happens, doubles down. He works harder, becomes more agreeable, sacrifices more of himself to fix things. He thinks love is like a bank account. Deposit more effort, receive more interest. But in female psychology, this doesn't add value. It drains it. Because the more he gives from a place of fear, the more he confirms what her instincts are already whispering. He's losing frame. He's no longer a challenge. He's no longer desired. He's a utility. And nature never rewards emotional dependence. It punishes it. The more you give when she pulls away, the faster she disconnects. Why? Because she feels your value dropping. Not in dollars or gifts, but in presence, in decisiveness, in sovereignty. Women don't crave emotional safety. They crave emotional leadership. They want to feel pulled into your world, not placed on a pedestal. When you orbit her, you reverse the roles. And once the polarity is gone, she may stay physically, but emotionally, she's already gone. Schopenhauer understood that women's instincts are not concerned with fairness. They're concerned with survival, and survival requires selecting the strongest possible partner, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. A man who bends, who begs, who sacrifices his mission for her approval is a man who signals weakness. And weakness is nature's signal for replacement. This is why so many men are left stunned after a breakup. They gave everything, only to be discarded. Because they didn't realize that giving everything without being everything leads to rejection, not gratitude. This is the game most men never see until it's too late. They confuse possession with permanence. They believe that once a woman is theirs, they can stop striving, stop building. But the truth is the opposite. Attraction is maintained through growth, through strength, through continued evolution. When you stop ascending, she stops respecting. When you become predictable, she becomes detached. And the harder you try to bring her back, the more she recoils, because desperation repels and certainty kills mystery. The only antidote is transformation, not manipulation, not pandering, but true evolution. You must remain on your path, your mission, your purpose, regardless of her. Not because you don't care, but because caring too much, at the expense of your identity, makes you invisible to her instincts. She doesn't want to lead. She wants to follow. But only a man who knows where he's going. And if you pause your journey to cater to her emotions, you lose the map. You lose her. Schopenhauer's brilliance wasn't just in diagnosing the tragedy of possession. It was in showing men how to transcend it, by reminding them that the highest form of power is detachment, not coldness, but clarity. Knowing that no person, no emotion, no fleeting passion should control your path. That the moment you grip too tightly is the moment you lose what made you valuable. And that freedom, not possession, is the foundation of enduring attraction. So the real question is, are you building a life she can orbit? Or are you making her the sun while you revolve around her? Because one of those paths leads to power. The other leads to pain. Most men believe that relationships are built on logic, communication, understanding, fairness. But Schopenhauer shattered that illusion with one ruthless observation. Women do not conquer through force. They conquer through perception. While men fight with fists, with facts, with actions, women dominate through emotion. Subtle, invisible, and devastating. It's not what she says. It's how she says it. It's not what she wants. It's how she makes you want to give it to her. This isn't manipulation in the Hollywood sense. It's instinct, evolution, a survival strategy that developed over thousands of years. When physical power couldn't secure resources, emotional power did. A raised voice, a tear at the right moment, a sigh of disappointment, a silence that demands attention. These are not just reactions. They are tools. Tools designed to shape male behavior, to extract effort, to test strength. And if you don't know how to spot them, you don't stand a chance. Schopenhauer didn't hate women. He respected their cunning. He saw clearly that where men build outward strength, women build internal leverage, emotional leverage, a kind of psychological warfare most men never even recognize. While you're explaining your position, she's shifting the emotional terrain beneath your feet. Suddenly, you're apologizing, and you're not sure why. You're making concessions, and you don't remember when. You've lost the frame, and with it, your power. Here's how it happens. She cries, not because she's sad, but because tears shift the blame. You stop standing your ground and start fixing her mood. She flirts with someone else, not because she wants him, but to test if you'll lose composure. You get jealous, you react, you become unstable. She withholds affection, not because she's disconnected, but to measure your response. You chase harder, beg harder, prove harder, and the more you try to win her back, the more power she gains. This is emotional leverage in its purest form. Schopenhauer called it the tyranny of the weak, the ability of the emotionally vulnerable to dominate the physically strong. And make no mistake, it works. The man who doesn't understand this becomes a puppet. He thinks he's leading, but he's reacting. He thinks he's in control, but he's constantly adapting to her moods, her tests, her perceptions. He becomes a man of reaction, not intention. The mistake most men make is trying to explain themselves, to appeal to fairness, to reason their way into respect. But emotional games don't respond to logic. They respond to strength. Not the strength to overpower, but the strength to remain unmoved. To see the game for what it is and not play it blindly. To respond with clarity, not confusion. To hold frame when every emotion is screaming at you to collapse. Frame is everything. It's the invisible container of power in every relationship. And once you lose it, no words can get it back. You don't argue for frame. You live it. You walk it. You embody it. And when a woman tests you because she will, you pass not by fighting her, but by refusing to submit. Not out of ego, out of truth. You are the rock. You are the standard. You are the man who leads, not because she says so, but because you are so. This is not about becoming cold or cruel. It's about becoming sovereign, whole, independent of her approval, her reactions, her tests. Because the moment you require her emotional validation to feel strong, you've already given away your power. And Schopenhauer warned us, this is the modern man's greatest weakness, not lack of resources, not lack of opportunity, but lack of self-possession. Too many men outsource their worth to women's emotions, and those emotions shift like wind. What does real strength look like? It looks like presence, calm in chaos, clarity under pressure, the ability to see the test and smile, to walk away if respect is lost, to choose yourself not from bitterness, but from certainty. That is the man women follow. That is the man nature rewards. Because while emotions can be powerful, they are powerless against a man who does not bend. So ask yourself this: do you control the emotional frame, or are you being silently led by it? Are you the steady hand or the anxious performer? Because in the silent war of emotional influence, only one side walks away with power, and only one side wins respect. Every man remembers the first time he woke up, the moment the illusion cracked, the moment he saw the game he was playing wasn't fair and wasn't meant to be. Maybe it was after a breakup that made no sense. Maybe it was after giving his all and getting nothing in return. Or maybe it was watching a woman he adored choose someone who treated her with indifference. Whatever the trigger, the realization is the same. He never had the power. She did. But that power wasn't given by society. It was given by nature. From the moment puberty hits, women are granted immense value. Youth, beauty, fertility. These become currencies instantly tradable in the sexual marketplace. She doesn't have to build them. She simply possesses them. Meanwhile, the average man begins at zero. He must earn his value. Through struggle, through success, through trial and transformation. This asymmetry is not a flaw. It's the system. And if you don't understand it, you'll forever feel like you're failing at a game you were never taught the rules to. Schopenhauer wrote bluntly about this imbalance. He observed that women are, in a sense, childish, frivolous, and short-sighted. Not as an insult, but as a biological reflection. They are designed to live in the present moment because their survival never depended on long-term planning. Men, however, were shaped to build, to delay gratification, to invest now and reap later. But here's the problem. Society teaches men to play by moral rules, while nature operates by primal ones. The man who clings to fairness in mating will always lose to the man who understands leverage. What does that leverage look like? In the early stages of a relationship, the woman holds the cards. She controls access to sex, validation, emotional connection. And men, desperate for these things, bend. They perform. They adapt. But over time, a subtle shift can occur. If the man is awake, if he builds, if he stops seeking validation and starts seeking excellence. Suddenly, the man who once chased becomes the man who is chased. The man who once reacted becomes the man who dictates terms. This is the power shift, and it only happens when a man reclaims his center, when he stops outsourcing meaning to relationships and starts creating it from within, when he stops measuring his value by how she treats him and starts measuring it by how unshakable he becomes. This doesn't mean rejecting women. It means no longer needing them for your sense of identity. It means becoming so rooted in your mission that anyone who wants to be in your life must meet your standard, not the other way around. Women feel this shift instantly. They may not be able to articulate it, but they sense when a man is self-possessed, when his time is valuable, when his energy is not scattered. And they are drawn to it like gravity, not because he tries, but because he doesn't try. Because he moves through life with purpose, and any woman who joins him must be an asset, not a liability. This is the opposite of how most men operate. Most men audition. The awakened man decides. Schopenhauer knew that most people, especially men, spend their lives conforming, chasing approval, fitting molds. He wrote, "We forfeit 3/4 of ourselves in order to be like other people." And nowhere is this more true than in love. Men give away their power trying to be the boyfriend, the husband, the provider society says they should be. And in doing so, they become invisible. Not because they are bad men, but because they are not real men. They are hollowed-out versions of themselves, performing for acceptance. But here's the truth. Once you stop performing, you become magnetic. You become rare. You become the man who doesn't flinch when she tests you, who doesn't chase when she pulls away, who doesn't collapse when she withdraws affection. You maintain your path, and if she wants to join, she must earn her place. This is the power most men never tap into, because they're too afraid to lose. But only the man who is willing to walk away ever holds the power to lead. So ask yourself this: are you the man who waits for approval, or the man who commands respect? Because in the game of power, one follows. The other builds his kingdom. Most men, once they realize the truth, fall into one of two traps. The first is resentment. They grow bitter, angry, hostile toward women for behaving exactly as nature designed them to. They see female strategy not as instinct, but as betrayal. The second is escapism. They retreat, give up, abandon the game altogether. Both are reactions to the same pain. Realizing the system isn't built for your comfort, it's built for your evolution. But Schopenhauer offered a third path, not to blame, not to quit, but to transcend. Transcending the game doesn't mean ignoring it. It means mastering it. Seeing every dynamic for what it truly is. A negotiation of value, not emotion. An exchange of energy, not promises. The man who transcends stops asking, why don't they love me? And starts asking, am I living in alignment with who I'm supposed to become? Because once you understand that the rules of attraction are ancient, brutal, and non-negotiable, you realize you only have two choices: complain about them or rise above them. How does a man rise? By detaching from outcomes, by learning to give without needing, to walk away without flinching, to build not for applause, but for purpose. Schopenhauer taught that happiness cannot be dependent on the external. The happiness which we receive from ourselves is greater than that which we obtain from our surroundings. When your inner world is strong, the outer world follows. You stop reacting to women. You stop competing with men. You operate from a place of internal abundance. You become unshakable. This is not just philosophical. It's deeply practical. The man who transcends doesn't get caught in petty emotional cycles. He sees the test and passes it, not by manipulating, but by not needing the result. He recognizes the patterns, not with resentment, but with clarity. He sets boundaries, not as punishment, but as a form of self-respect. He no longer participates in games where he has to prove his worth. His presence is his proof. When you become this man, something strange happens. The very things you used to chase begin to chase you. Women sense the shift. They feel the detachment, the self-possession, the quiet strength. And they are drawn not because you need them, but because you don't. Neediness repels. Sovereignty attracts. This is why the emotionally unavailable man is so irresistible. He seems whole, untouchable. And while society condemns this dynamic, nature rewards it. Because women don't want to complete a man. They want to follow one who is already complete. Transcendence also means clarity and choice. You stop letting attraction dictate your decisions. Just because she's beautiful doesn't mean she qualifies. Just because she wants your attention doesn't mean she deserves it. You assess, you filter, you lead. You understand that the same instincts that make a woman desirable can also make her dangerous. You no longer mistake validation for connection. You no longer confuse chemistry with compatibility. You choose consciously, not reactively. Schopenhauer wasn't interested in comfort. He was interested in truth. And the truth is this: only a man who no longer needs the game can win it. Only a man who stops chasing outcomes can command them. And only a man who conquers himself can attract what others are still begging for. This is the paradox of power. The more you need, the less you receive. The less you need, the more you attract. And the man who lives this truth becomes untouchable, not because he's cold, but because he's complete. So the final question is this: are you still playing the game by their rules, or are you ready to write your own? Most men will never wake up. They'll keep chasing illusions, believing that if they just try harder, love harder, give more, they'll be chosen. They'll spend decades performing, pleasing, sacrificing, only to be discarded when they're no longer useful. They'll blame themselves, or worse, blame women. But the truth was always there, hidden in plain sight. And Schopenhauer saw it centuries ago, not to hurt you, but to free you. Because once you see reality for what it is, you can stop reacting and start creating. You stop trying to win her approval and start winning at life. You stop asking what she wants and start asking what you're building. You begin to live with intention, with power, with a sense of mission that no woman, no rejection, no emotion can shake. That's the man women follow. That's the man other men respect. And that's the man who's not just playing the game, but rewriting it. This isn't about hate. It's about truth. And the man who loves truth more than comfort becomes unstoppable. He builds wealth, not for validation, but for freedom. He builds his body, not for attention, but for discipline. He builds his mind, not to argue, but to see. And once you become that man, truly become him, something incredible happens. You no longer chase power. You are the power. You don't need to be chosen. You are the prize. And when that shift happens, everything changes.